Your mother tells me you're seeing monsters. Let's talk about these monsters. Angela Blake was about 9 years old, and her mother had heard about the Forgetfulness clinic on the radio and decided to bring her daughter for an appointment with Dr. Winters. There was nothing wrong with her daughter. She made that very clear, but she was worried about the frequency with which her little girl was talking and dreaming about monsters. Dr. Winters wasn't particularly worried. Kids talked about monsters all the time, but the mother was paying for results, and she supposed she would help her get them. "You wouldn't believe me," the little girl in the sage green dress said morosely. "Adults never do." "Well, most adults wouldn't. But I happen to have some experience with monsters, and I can assure you that if you're honest with me, I'll be able to help you." The little girl looked at her with such naked hope that it almost hurt Dr. Winters to stare at her. Many kids were afraid of the usual monsters under the bed, or the classic monster in the closet, but this kid looked like she had a little bit more on her mind than imaginary bugaboos. This little girl looked hopeful that Dr. Winters might be able to make the monsters go away. "You promise?" "I will try my best." Angela told her that the monsters she was afraid of weren't the kind that lived under the bed or in the closet. They weren't the kind of monsters that would become piles of clothes when no one was looking. They weren't the kinds of monsters that were just shadows on the wall. The monsters she was afraid of were real, and they had taken some of her friends. They got Jenny last year. They got Jerry 6 months ago. They took Melissa a couple of months after that. And Wendy, they took her just before school started. They always come around for a few days before they take someone. Once they decide whose turn it is, they come and get them, and no one ever does anything about it." This made Dr. Winters raise an eyebrow. This was a little more serious than childhood fears. If children were actually going missing, then it was something that she might be able to fix in a very different way. "Angela, where are these people from?" "I don't know, but they always come around in their black vans, and they always wear masks." "What kinds of masks?" Dr. Winters asked, making notes. "Animal masks. At first I thought they were funny. One of them was a bear, one of them was a fox, one of them was a snake, and that one was a little scary, but one of them was a big friendly dog, and when he asked Wendy to come with him, she went." "Why did Wendy go with the dog man?" Dr. Winters asked. "Because she thought he was her friend. She didn't know that he was nobody's friend. They're all bad men, and they all take children whether they want to go or not." "Have you told your mother about these men?" Angela nodded, her eyes hooded like she was half in a dream. "Some of the grown-ups know about the animal people. They know about them, and they don't do anything because the animal people have something they need. Most of the time, the adults act like they don't know anything about the animal people. They act like it's a game, and like it's all make-believe when we tell them." Dr. Winters was nodding along, pretty sure she knew what sort of people Angela was talking about. "Where are these animal people? Do you know?" Angela shook her head. "Nobody does. Nobody knows who they are, or if they do, they pretend they don't. I'm scared, though. That's why my mommy brought me here." "Why are you scared, Angela?" Dr. Winters could think of a good number of reasons to be scared in this situation, but sometimes it helped if they could tell you themselves. "Because last week, while I was playing on the playground at school, I looked up and there was one of the masked people standing at the fence. I didn't know him, but he had on the dog mask, and he just kept staring at me. I looked at him, and he looked at me as if he was completely unafraid. He put his hands against the fence. He gripped the chains, and I just knew that some night that man was going to come and get me. That's why I've been having nightmares. That's why I haven't been eating. That's why my mommy brought me here. Can you help me? I don't want to be afraid anymore, and Mommy says that you can help me not be afraid. Dr. Winters sat down her notebook and smiled at Angela. Yes, I believe I can help you. Do you and your mommy live in Kashmir? Angela shook her head. No, Mommy and I live in Pritchard. Dr. Winters was nodding. That made sense. Pritchard was less of a town and more of a trailer park with infrastructure. It was a miserable little place, not a place you would want to raise a child, but she supposed that some people really didn't have a lot of choice where they lived. They did have a lot of choice about whether or not the local monsters got to hurt their children, and for that, Dr. Winters could not forgive the mother. How could something like that be going on and no one be aware? It boggled the mind, but Dr. Winters was going to put a stop to it. By the end of the day, Dr. Winters was going to put a stop to a lot of things. Listen to me, Angela. I need you to do me a favor. Okay, Angela said, sounding small and scared. I need you to tell your mommy that we had a lovely session and that you aren't afraid anymore. I need you to tell her that I made all your fears go away, and now you feel much better. But I want you to know that after today, you'll have nothing to be afraid of from those animal mask people. I'm going to go talk to them, and I think they'll listen to me. Angela started to get upset, but Dr. Winters put a hand over the little girl's and smiled at her. You have my word. I'll make them see why it's not a good idea to bother children of any sort. And if you ever see any of them again after today, you call me, and I'll come have another talk with them. Angela threw her arms around Dr. Winters and hugged her fiercely. Whether or not she believed that Dr. Winters could make the bad people go away, she had still made her feel safe. Pamela wanted to help the girl, but Winter wanted the kind of justice that you often only saw in westerns. Winter wanted revenge. The two of them didn't always see eye to eye on things, but when it came to the safety of children, the two of them were in perfect agreement. Marguerite picked up on the second ring. My love, is something the matter? I have to make a house call. I'm afraid I might need your help. There was silence on the other end of the line, but Pamela had known Maggie long enough to hear the smile behind that silence. I have a feeling that this house call will be a dinner date, mayhaps. I have a feeling you might be right. Will you come with me? My love, I would come with you to the gates of hell. She agreed to meet Dr. Winters at her clinic after closing time, and Pamela said her goodbyes before hanging up. Justice would have to wait. She still had a full workload to make her way through before then. Dr. Winters knocked 5 times on the door of the club, and the footsteps from inside were thunderous. Whoever was inside, they had clearly not expected guests, and that was good. Winter didn't want to be expected. Winter wanted to be a complete surprise when they opened the door to find a petite woman in her early 30s standing there waiting for them. Above all else, Winter loved surprising people. They had gone to the park first, the park where Angela had said some of her friends had gone missing. They had looked around, Winter using her powers to find any residual fear or anger, and finally she found what she had been looking for. If the latest little girl had been taken a day or so later, it might not have been as viable, but the sense of fear and lust was enough to sting her nose as she followed it. The little girl hadn't wanted to go. None of them wanted to go. But there was something else that Winter almost remembered. That feeling of loyalty to one's family. The feeling that if she didn't go, then someone she loved would have to go in her place. Whoever these people were, they were the most hideous kind of vultures. And Winter was about to show them there was a much larger predator, much closer than they thought. The place the trail had led them to was the kind of club where desperate men found themselves when they needed companionship. It was the kind of place women found themselves when they needed a job and their resumes weren't the cleanest. It was not a bad place, but it was a place that could become bad, and Winter was not a fan of it. She knew many of them were dens for drugs and worse things, and if this was the sort of place these animal mask people congregated, then it needed to be shut down. The man who opened the door could have been an extra on The Sopranos, and Maggie and Dr. Winters pushed past him and into the back room of the Silver Lining like they had been invited. "Whoa, hey there, where do you think you're going?" Winter didn't stop or speak to him, and as she came into the back room, she saw 5 men sitting around a card table as they anteed and dealt. She had seen some of them on the news, members of the town council or prominent members of the community, or as prominent as they could get in a place like this. One of them was the sheriff, another one was the acting mayor, 2 more were councilmen, and one of them was the head of the largest construction outfit in the area. They had probably passed his man on the way in, but it mattered very little. They looked up at her with confusion and with a sick sort of hope, and Winter was going to enjoy wiping it off their faces. "Frank, you didn't tell us you'd ordered entertainment for the evening. Doesn't appear to be enough of them to go around, so I guess we'll have to share." Dr. Winters smiled, and it was icy. "Oh, don't worry. There's more than enough of us to go around. Are you the animal-masked men who've been holding this town hostage?" She hadn't needed to ask. All of the masks from Angela's story were hanging on the wall of this place, as if they were just waiting to be put on. The snake, the fox, the bear. There was a wolf mask, which she hadn't mentioned, and the one beside it was the one she'd been looking for. It was the friendly-looking dog, the one she had remembered, and the one that made Dr. Winters absolutely livid. She imagined that the speaker, the one who had started talking, was probably the one who wore the dog mask, and she wondered how many children had gone willingly with that friendly-looking face. "Sure are," the speaker said, as though he were proud of it. "You're looking at the real city council for this town. Why, you looking to renegotiate whatever Frank promised you?" "No," Dr. Winters said, almost kindly. "I just wanted to make sure I got the right dead men." They both shed their glamour then, and any thoughts the assembled men might have had about what was going to happen fled from their minds. One of them drew a gun, but Winter already had her hand around his throat. The gun barked twice before she felt his windpipe collapse. Something buzzed against her skin, and she turned to find the sheriff pointing a shaky revolver at her. Behind her, Maggie had torn the guts out of one of them and was bent over another as she drank his blood. The 5th, the man who had opened the door, was trying to run, but his hands were having trouble opening the door. She looked back at the sheriff, and her smile was enough to make him wet himself. The man stopped trying to get out the door as the sheriff's body slammed into him, crushing him against the metal portal. The 2 women ripped their little poker game apart like a hurricane, and it would have been nearly impossible to identify any of them without dental records. The room was bathed in blood, none of them lasting more than a few minutes, and when they finished, they went looking for the victims they knew would be somewhere. They found a few of them in a cage in the back room. It was a cage meant for an animal, for dogs, and these men had placed lost children in them, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. They had taken them, most of them barely in grade school, and marked them with the intent of sending them as far from their parents and guardians as they could manage. It was one of many things that made Dr. Winter's blood boil, and as she released them and assured them they would be fine, that's when the blue and white lights approached. The police from Pritchard never saw the people who had massacred their standing city council, but the return of the town's children seemed to give them new resolve to fight what little of it remained. Strange news out of Pritchard. It seems that the city council, as well as the sheriff and one of the largest construction magnates in the area, were killed last night before being implicated in a child abduction ring that had been providing children to sex traffickers. Several children were returned to their families, but temporary Sheriff August Manderley says the department will be working hard to find the rest. He claims he had no idea of the sheriff's actions, and the department is scrambling to get out in front of what is assuredly a PR nightmare. Scary stuff, Juliet said, as she noticed Dr. Winters standing by the counter. Really makes you look at people a little differently, doesn't it? Dr. Winters said nothing, only smiling as she returned to her office to complete some paperwork. Juliet was better off not knowing she had been involved. It wasn't often that she and Maggie got to indulge in their baser natures, but it was always nice when the nature could help serve the community. Even if it hadn't, Dr. Winters liked knowing that one little girl would be sleeping a lot more soundly tonight when she wasn't being haunted by the face of a terrible, smiling old pervert. Those masks now hung in her office, though they would have to come down if Sheriff Guthrie ever decided to make a surprise visit. She wanted them close by, so she could be sure they would never be used against anyone again. And she also wanted them as a keepsake, so she didn't forget why she fought so hard. It was good to remember exactly what it was all for sometimes, especially when your strength might be waning. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.